Good morning, good morning. Quick straw poll. Who has kids? Hands up if you have kids. Leave your hand up if when you had those kids, you had a birthing plan. Leave your hand up if your birth went exactly like your birthing plan. They almost never do they? My wife's a nurse, accident emergency nurse, and so her birthing plan was no doctors, don't want any doctors, no medical intervention. So we were booked into the midwife-led unit next to the hospital. We had the birthing pool. My wife had been doing meditation for nursing. There was like dream catchers up on the walls. There was electric candles so the gas wouldn't explode. And so we turned up at the hospital. We had enough food to last 3 days, and we had enough Enya to last a week. Because my wife just loves Enya, and I just hate Enya, but it's totally her show, absolutely. Let's bring those 37 Enya CDs, my darling, no problem at all. And so we get along to the hospital. Within 15 minutes, sadly, undiagnosed breech baby. So the baby's the right way up instead of upside down. And so within 45 minutes of getting to the hospital, we think we're going over this way. There's a huge shift. We're going 180 degrees. We're in the operating theatre. My wife is numb from the chest down, and the surgeon's about to open her up and do an emergency Caesar. Now, I think the anaesthetist could tell that my wife was quite upset by this. So he leaned down and whispered into my wife. He said, "Mrs. Wilson, would you like me to put the radio on during the procedure? Would you like some music during the operation?" And my wife looks up at me with this angelic, earnest look in her eyes and just said, "Wouldn't it be a sign if Enya came on the radio?" This song, at this point in the song, is what came out of the stereo. Now, we could have exploded into anger. We could have dissolved into tears. But our eyes locked and we chose to laugh. And that dispersed all the tension in the room, and we got on with this wonderful day in our lives. In that moment, we stumbled on this powerful way to stay resilient through the tough times that would be repeated again and again and again as I was doing the interviews for this What I Wish I Knew book series that I've got out there, where I asked people if you could go back and give your younger self one bit of advice, what would it be? Over the last decade, I've interviewed over 1,000 inspirational people from all around the world, like international sportsmen and women, to a Buddhist nun who works with prisoners on death row in Los Angeles, from celebrity comedians the world over to a man who survived 9/11. And when you ask that many people how to do life well, how to get to the end of your days and be sitting on a park bench, arm in arm with someone you adore, looking back on your life with a big satisfied smile instead of a heart full of regrets, there's one thought that keeps coming up again and again and again. And it's just this: lighten up. We all get so serious, don't we? Everyone I've spoken to with my book series says, if you laugh about it on your 80th birthday, start laughing about it now. And it fits in with what we all instinctively want, isn't it? You look at those dating websites out there. What's the one thing everyone says their prospective partner must have? Apparently. Everyone says GSOH, good sense of humour. That's what we all naturally gravitate towards, people who laugh and joke when other people are stressing out. And research has shown that that's because it's a very clear indicator that that person is calm, centred, has inner peace and strong psychological well-being. So the idea that I think is worth sharing with you guys today is that we should take a more deliberate approach to developing a good sense of humour. Because we all sort of move through life and appreciate funny when it happens. But if you look at the benefits to your resilience, like your business, your love life, your health and your happiness, we should all consciously try to create more funny in our lives. If you want to get to that park bench and be happy with how you've spent your time here, we all should take funny seriously. But I know, this is a TED Talk. There's no point me throwing some anecdotal evidence at you or even running through what my research has shown. I know I need to show you the scientists. And there they are. Look at that. Oh, look at them. They're working away. Look at that. And then, bang, happier. Look at that. Proof. Oh, look at that. I'm kidding, of course. There's been some wonderful... They've been researching this for about 20 or 30 years. And some of the more recent research has been just wonderful. Having a good sense of humour helps you reappraise threats and reduce stress. When you laugh at your problems, it's like it flicks a switch in the back of your brain and says to your brain, well, I must be bigger than that. I must have control over that. And that increases your personal resilience, helps you get through the tough times and bounce back more quickly. And that facilitates psychological well-being, just develops inner peace and helps you get through life more calmly. And that gives you greater positive affect. That's a psychological term for happier or more cheerful. Now, am I saying that having a few laughs is better than exercise, meditation, gratitude journals, random acts of kindness, All those things that positive psychology have shown us over the years make you more resilient and happier. No, of course not. It's not an instead of. But bringing the attitude of looking to the funny is something you can lay down on top of all those other things. You know, for example, learning meditation can be incredibly frustrating at the start when your mind just wanders again and again and again. But meditation teachers the world over tell you to laugh at that wandering, or at least smile at it kindly and gently bring your brain back to the practice. There's one other study that's had a dramatic effect on my family, and it's this. A greater sense of humour it led to increased optimism, decreased perceived stress, depression and anxiety. My wonderful, brave wife, Ali, has had an ongoing dance with depression and anxiety, as she calls it, all her life. And she's had 3 crippling episodes of postnatal depression after all 3 of our children, you see up there. To the point where about 9 months after the birth of our youngest child, Charlie, I came home and over the dinner table she burst into tears and showed me the goodbye letters she'd written to myself and all 3 of our boys individually. Now, there's 2 parts to that I want to talk to you about today. The first is very quickly cover off how those 3 episodes affected me. See, the first time I was working as a full-time stand-up over in the UK, and I handled it reasonably well. The second time, I was just writing my books, and when Ali got depressed, I went right down with her, and at the time I couldn't work out why I'd sunk so low. The third time, I was doing what I do now. I'm a professional speaker and consultant, and I travel the world helping people build their resilience and get over their fear of change. And I remember this one particular after-dinner speech I gave in San Francisco when the crowd laughed along with me for a good solid hour. And I remember this really specific moment in the green room. I know exactly where I was. When I had that real aha moment, you know, that penny dropping moment when you get that flood of chemicals in your brain. And I realised that my job now, just like my job when I was a comedian, is an incredible boost to my happiness and well-being. Partly, I think, just being in a room full of people laughing, which is lovely, but I think more importantly, you're always looking for new material and new stories. So I'm constantly responding to my life, the world, the news, with the question, what's funny about this? What's funny about this? What's funny about this? And that seemed to inoculate me against the effects this devastating depression was having on the woman I loved. More importantly is how Ali, my wife, navigated her way through this. Now, the night that she showed me the letters, obviously there was some really brutal and heartbreaking conversations and a lot of tears. And eventually I just said, well, look, is there any way I can help? And Ali went really quiet for a little minute and just said, you know, we don't laugh anymore. And we used to be the couple who would go to comedy clubs and watch funny movies, funny TV, and you know, laugh when things went terribly wrong in the operating theatre. But we'd stopped. We'd stopped deliberately scheduling funny into our lives. And so we started again. We started going to live comedy, recording shows on like QI and Graham Norton from the UK and Saturday Night Live and Whose Line Is It Anyway from the US. Started asking friends and family, like, tell us funny stories. What's going on in your life? Now, every day, every night over the dinner table, we ask our kids, what made you laugh today? Now, am I saying that a few thigh-slapping chuckles cured Ali's depression? No, of course not. She's done some work with an amazing psychologist. She was on medication for a while. You know, exercise, meditation, sunshine, making sleep a greater priority has had a massive help as well. But the fact remains, Ali truly turned a corner when we started to take funny seriously. But please don't think that this stuff only works in times when you need extreme resilience. It works even better for the day-to-day stuff. As someone who travels the world helping businesses build their people's resilience, I notice again and again and again one of the greatest stressors that people have in modern life, particularly at work, is the increasingly accelerating pace of change. But I say, the thing I get people to look at, and indeed laugh at, is that whining about change shows a deeply profound misunderstanding of what life is really like. Who wants to be alive? Hands up if you'd like to be alive. People at home, ask yourself, do you want life? Then you have to accept this. This is the Oxford English Dictionary definition of the word life. The condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, including the capacity for growth, reproduction, functional activity, and continual change preceding death. Continual change till the day you die. Continual change. Like, life is absolutely full of moments where you think you're going over there and all of a sudden you're over there, just like my wife had with the birth of our firstborn child. The best way to see how your brain is handling that, who gets into a bit of road rage? Be honest. Being in your car is the best metaphor for what life is really like, because you have total control over this tiny little box just around you and nothing else. And those people you're shouting at can't hear you, and don't care about your opinion anyway. This friend of mine used to go absolutely mad for the road rage, absolutely crazy for it. And until he discovered this one anger technique, and I'll talk you guys through it today because it's all about using humour to disperse all the tension. If you're getting stressed in the car, you can go nuts, you can abuse whoever you want, but you have to do it using old Broadway show tunes. And he demonstrated for me about 3 months ago. We're driving along middle of Sydney, for those who know it, Pitt Street, for those who know it, and this guy in a Jeep Grand Cherokee cut us off. You know, those like typical inner city, buys the Jeep Grand Cherokee so they can successfully navigate those treacherous leafy avenues of suburban Mossman. Oh, love it, love it, love it. Simply murderous pothole in Lower Pumpernickel Mews. I'm guessing by the quiet there's a few in today. Anyway, I thought this friend of mine was going to go nuts, but he's just calmly got out of the car, looked across at me and just said, West Side Story. And he's gone up the guy in the Jeep, I swear, middle of Sydney, middle of the city, middle of the day, like this, just gone. You make me sick in your four-wheel drive, dressed like a dick in your four-wheel drive, Timberland shirt in your four-wheel drive, but don't get no dirt on your four-wheel drive. Now, I thought to myself, I can do that. Because the guy got out of the car, they both had a big laugh, shook hands, and all the tension was dispersed. I thought, I've got to try that. So I was practicing at home. About 2 weeks later, driving a little boring man's Prius that I've got here, and this guy in another Jeep jammed the brakes on right in front of me. I thought, this mate of mine thought I was going to go absolutely nuts, but I'd been rehearsing. I just calmly got out of the car, looked across at him and just said, Sound of Music. And I start walking up this guy in the Jeep just going, bastards in Bentleys and Glitzers in Lincolns, biffing and barging right in without thinking, driving like dickheads and cutting in front. Just like old Jeep drivers, you are a huge Tongan who just beat the crap out of me. Everyone I've spoken to for my book series says, look, if you want to get to this point, if you want to get to the point where you're looking back on your life happy and satisfied, you have to remember that time flies past. In the blink of an eye, we go from this to this. And so getting caught up. So stop trying to control that cascade of change that comes towards you all the time. Instead, control what goes on in here and what goes on in here. I love this quote. You cannot calm the storm, so stop trying. What you can do is calm yourself. The storm will pass. And I believe the best, and certainly the most enjoyable in the moment, way to do that is humour. But if you don't believe me, trust Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was the psychologist who survived the Nazi concentration camps in World War II. And in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he said very eloquently, humour, more than anything else in the human makeup, can afford an aloofness and an ability to rise above any situation, even just for a few seconds. Your resilience is far too important for you to take it too seriously. Love and relationships are too important to take it too seriously. Life is too important to take it seriously. Please, please, take funny seriously. Thank you. That was beautiful.